Apologize for beginning this meeting late. City Council just ended, and we had a long City Council meeting. Both Mr. Alarcon and I came up straight from that council meeting. Greg Smith will not join us today. He has an item in his district that he needed to attend to. And with that, I know Mr. Alarcon will be with us shortly. If we could begin on the street vacations, we have the first 4 items are street vacations. I understand number 4 will be noted and filed since that project is no longer going forward. If we could put items 1 through 3 on consent.
Julia Moy, Bureau of Engineering. We have one small technical correction on item 3.
Okay, can you read that into the record, please?
Absolutely. We'd like to revise condition number 8 on page 4 to read that the Los Angeles Unified School District will contact Department of Transportation citywide traffic control 6 months prior to opening the school for the preparation of a pedestrian safe route to school map and to coordinate the installation and implementation of any necessary school signs, school crosswalks, traffic signals, loading zones, pedestrian routes, and crossing guards. That is all.
Okay, so when my colleague returns, we will note and file item number 4, and we'll have items number 1 through 3 on consent. So there he is. Your consent? Mr. Alarcon, we will have items 1 through 3 on consent, and item number 4 will be noted and filed, if that is okay with you. Those are all street vacations. Okay, so we'll note that. And in the interest of time, given that we're starting this meeting an hour and 25 minutes late, I would suggest that we do items 5 and 6 today, and we continue the remainder of the items, just given the time. We apologize to those who have been waiting, understandably, because of the committee, council meeting. We expected it to end sooner, and we thought we could have this full meeting today, but it went longer than we expected, even after we took care of most of our business in council. So items 5 and 6, we'll take those items up and continue. 7, okay, items 5, 6, and 7 we will take up today, and we will continue items 8, 9, 10, and 11. The next Council Public Works Committee is when?
December 2nd.
December 2nd. December 2nd, number 2. We apologize for that and those who have been waiting for this.
On 11, should they take up 11? Do they, should you want to take it? I don't know whether it is.
And all we're going to do is the attorney just report, written report, and then we'll right after they do that. Number 11, they were hoping we could hear it. It's the flood thing. It's something they want to know.
Okay, item number 5, please.
Good afternoon.
Number 5, Chief Legislative Analyst Report relative to increased posting and enforcement of street sweeping areas and related matters. This item has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Councilmember Alarcon, Nazario Salceda, Assistant Director with the Bureau of Street Services. Relative to item number 5, the Bureau of Street Services provided the CLA with all the pertinent information back in October of 2008 to put together the report that is on record dated 10/21 of 2008. Basically, in this report, we explained the street cleaning program that the Bureau of Street Services is currently running, how it is comprised of 3 different components: restricted routes, open routes, and AM routes. More specifically, the Bureau of Street Services was instructed to look for the possibilities of increasing the current restricted parking program. As you know very well, only 1/3 of the street network is posted for restricted street cleaning of the street. By doing that, the Bureau of Street Services provided information such as currently the Bureau of Street Services is authorized with 103 motor sweeper operators, of which only 80 positions are filled. We have lost quite a few people, quite a few motor sweeper operators, and the inability to hire and backfill those positions has forced the Bureau to use sub-operators, moving people from performing other functions to the function of street cleaning, which is a very, very important function because it generates approximately $41 million in revenue due to citations related to street cleaning. By doing that, also, the Bureau of Street Services, yes?
Isn't it also mandated by the state that if it's posted, it must be done?
That is correct, Council Member. With the Bureau of Street Services, although the city policy is to comply with this mandate at a 95% efficiency, the Bureau of Street Services has a self-imposed efficiency of 97%, which we're very proud to say that, yeah, we comply with this policy 97% of the times. As a result of this study, we presented the CLA with a strategy to increase the mileage of the restricted routes, in which we provided a module that we called the 100 curb mile module. In order for us to increase the number of restricted routes, it is necessary for us in the City of LA to identify $1.5 million. That is for the acquisition of the equipment, the hiring of the staff to perform the work, and of course the necessary posting of the streets. That would be a duty that the Department of Transportation would have to perform. At this point, in considering the current fiscal condition of the city, our recommendation, of course, is that, or our comment is that, clearly, yes, it's a possibility, but is not very viable considering the current restrictions that we have with hiring, with purchasing new equipment. As you know very well, we're going through a mandated 15% fleet reduction. And although it's a possibility, we don't feel that the time is the right to increase postal routes in the street cleaning program.
Thank you. So at this time, you have this information, which you're relaying is that there's not sufficient funding, although you have a plan in place. You don't have the staffing or the funding to implement the plan. Is that good?
That is correct, Council Member.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, you said the city was posted at about 1/3?
That is correct.
33%?
I'll say 33%, yes.
Okay. Some districts have more posting than others?
That is correct. Some have more than others.
Do you have a listing or a matrix of which districts have the most and which districts have the least?
Certainly, we can provide you with that information by council district, yes.
Okay. Could I request that now? What's the idea? We're going to go back to the council. So the idea is for every $1.5 million that we can find, if we want to dedicate it to street sweeping, we can get 100 miles.
100 curb miles.
And 100 miles, what proportion, what is the average mileage of signs or of street sweeping available in a council district?
Well, in order to qualify...
To get a sense of what the 100 miles means,
right?
How many miles if 100% of the city were swept, that could be swept, what would the average be?
Right. It is very hard to give you a number, Councilman, because a lot of things have to be taken into consideration. Number one, not all the streets should be posted because the amount of debris that we collect from those streets doesn't warrant the need to have a sweeper there every week. In addition,
I just want a general sense of what 100 miles means. I mean, is it,
Well, so you get an idea, Councilman. Every postal route has approximately 10 miles. So we're talking about 10 postal routes citywide, 100 miles.
To me. I'm just trying to get a sense of how large 100 miles
Okay, it would be approximately
So you have, what's the total amount of miles right now?
Right now, the total amount of miles that are posted is 4,700 miles, curb miles.
So
Curb
100 miles would represent 2%.
2% of that, that is correct.
And how many, okay. This question just came to me. How many blocks does that represent?
Each city block is approximately 500 feet, so we're talking about 100 miles would be possibly 1,000 blocks.
I'll take that. I don't know, but the bottom line is that 100 miles is not going to have a significant impact on the totality of the city of Los Angeles, and so 1.5 million. I mean, to have real impact on street sweeping, like for example, if we wanted to expand the street swept by 10%,
Right.
that we're talking $7.5 million, and it's not realistic to think of that. Now, I am working with the department on 100 miles just for my district with funds that I've cobbled together in discretionary money in large measure and other monies that are available. But it's a very difficult task. The last time it was done was about 11 or 12 years ago when I was council member, and I did 100 miles then, and it hadn't been done for a whole bunch of years before that. So it's a very rare experience that we expand. Now, there are other ways that we do street sweeping. For example, around our landfills, the sanitation department does some street sweeping, right?
No, basically the street cleaning in the public right-of-way is done by the Bureau of Street
So,
Services.
like at Lopez Canyon, I know that they had an agreement to do street sweeping, and they had a sweeper.
Right.
So who did that?
That's sanitation, yeah, that's their property, and they're doing that. They have their own sweeper, and they're doing that.
But they do it in the community.
Well, again, Lopez Canyon, if it's on the street, on a public street, is us. If it's within the facility, Lopez Canyon, that may be them, you know.
Okay. I know these aren't your sweepers out there.
Okay. Well, I'll investigate what is happening there then.
Yeah.
If it's in the public right-of-way, it should be us doing it.
Okay. And what I'm suggesting to the chairman is there may be ways to mitigate, for example, in community benefits agreements, where there are large projects, we may be able to work arrangements where they provide sweepers. But again, it's a rare experience, and we're way behind. But I would appreciate if the department would provide us with a listing of which districts have how many miles and how many miles more they would need to cover their district.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do you have anything to add on items 6 and 7? They're very similar to...
Basically, item 6, Councilman, is the same thing. We have studied the different possibilities to increase the efficiency, but the reality is every time that you increase the number of miles, additional staff is required. So that is why we put together this module that clearly at least let us visualize what is required for every 100 curb miles of additional street cleaning that we want to add to the restricted program. We have clustered, the way we put together our routes is by putting adjacent neighborhoods that have restricted parking. This way, we maximize the time that the sweepers are on the streets. Typically, sweepers are making only right turns to maximize also their sweeping time. They don't make left turns. They only make right turns as much as possible to stay always on one side of the street and minimize going through intersections and waiting time as they perform the work. So once again, item 5 and item 6 are basically the same items that came at different times, and the same module applies for number 6.
If I may ask, this one asks, for example, that we consider reducing one weekly sweep from each of 3 additional established routes. But doesn't that run counter to our mandates, our statutory requirements?
In a way, it does, because although the requirement is to sweep the street, once a month, to sweep our streets once a month. But in this case, restricted routes comply with that mandate because we do it four times a month, not only one time a month. And, but the big thing right here, if we were to reduce one weekly sweep from each of the three established routes, basically, we now have a frequency of once every 2 weeks, which will force the Bureau and the city to repost all the streets, creating a financial impact on the reposting of all those routes.
Yeah, but I also thought the concern was that if you have a posting and you don't do the sweeping,
Yeah.
you're taking parking away from the public.
That is
And
correct.
The state is very sensitive about removing public parking and then not doing what was promised. And but I don't know what the implications of that are. I mean, if we don't do it, who's gonna, what state inspector, or could somebody sue the city for not getting served?
No, as long as we do it once a month, once every 30 days, we are in compliance. The only issue that we have...
If it's posted. If you have a sign on the street,
Right.
you gotta do what it says.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when, let's say, for example, one of our sweeper operators gets sick, or we are not going to be able to sweep a route, we notify our sister Department of Transportation. We let them know to relax the enforcement because we will not be able to sweep that route. And there's an excellent communication between us and the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
And in this way, this case, we avoid citing people unnecessarily.
Thank you. And finally, on CD 14, the pilot program there, on item number 7, the pilot program in CD 14, what was the results of that? And-
On CD 15, we had the Harbor Gateway pilot program. We implemented this program for 6 months. Basically, what we did, every day, we were bringing a sweeper from a nearby postal route to sweep only one street, because once again, the issue here, the biggest challenge that we have is the inability to add miles, because adding more miles requires physically to have a sweeper and a sweeper operator performing the work. And while the sweeper operator performs that work, something else is not getting done. So we took the program for 6 months. We were very successful, but at one point we started losing, as I mentioned before, some of our sweeper operators, so we could not extend the program beyond 6 months. While we had the resources to do it, we were absorbing it, but at this point, there was a point in the pilot program where we just couldn't do it anymore unless it was done on weekends. And in order to do that, we would have to pay overtime. At that point, we met with City Council District 15 because we had 2 pilot programs, Green Meadows and Harbor Gateway. And it was Council District 15 in collaboration with us who decided, well, let's keep at least, Green Meadows and let's drop Harbor Gateway. And again, it goes back to having the necessary resources to do the pilots.
Thank you. I would suggest that we continue 5, 6, and 7, come back in 60 days, provide the information that Mr. Alarcon requested, and also any additional information on, for each of these items, what staffing, workload, and financial impacts these would have, and particularly for item number 6, see if we could, what's the feasibility of expanding the street sweeping services as suggested in that motion, if you could put that in writing for us. And on number 7, what's the feasibility of expanding that to other areas, and what are
We
the
will.
lessons learned from that? Okay.
We will.
And Mr. Chair, if I can
Yes.
bring up Roy Morales with the CLA's office, the second component of an effective street sweeping expansion program is the DOT component, and we should definitely keep the costs in mind. We will need additional enforcement officers in order to expand. Typically, one curb mile needs an additional beat officer. So.
We'll include that in the report. Great. That concludes our meeting, I believe. All the other items have been continued. Thank you very much. Thank you.